Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Leaders and community members from the Aamjiwnaang First Nation in Southern Ontario were in Toronto on Thursday. They called on the provincial government to co-create a new path forward to address environmental injustices impacting them. Aamjiwnaang is located near the city of Sarnia, Ontario, in an area referred to as Chemical Valley, due to the dozens of industrial facilities operating nearby. During a press conference, Aamjiwnaang Chief Janelle Namabin says a state of emergency was declared this past April due to high levels of benzene in the air, which led to the hospitalization of community members. The chief is also calling on the Ontario and Canadian governments to help solve the issue of toxic pollution and environmental racism.
Many people do have cancer. Respiratory is very large, dizziness, headaches. This was all leading up to which triggered our state of emergency. However, we do have a large number of people that do suffer from respiratory illnesses. And so our level that triggers children to remain indoors is with the understanding that they may already have a respiratory issue because of where we live.
The family of a man who has been missing for more than 4 months in Saskatchewan is speaking out, hoping the public will come forward with new tips in finding their loved one.
Nobody's speaking out about this. Nobody wants to come forward with any information. So we're pleading to the public to please help us bring our brother home.
According to the family, Ryan Nicotine was last seen walking on foot, traveling northbound in Battleford on Highway 4 on July 6th at around 3:30 a.m. Battleford's RCMP also found that Nicotine withdrew money from an ATM and paid for a cab twice that night. Saskatchewan RCMP have conducted searches by air throughout the Battleford area, including in an area by the river south of the town. The family says it has raised a $3,500 reward for credible information that can lead to finding Nicotine. And the family's put up missing posters in Calgary, Edmonton, Prince Albert, Saskatoon, and Regina. Ryan Nicotine is from the Red Pheasant First Nation and just turned 40 on November 6th. He is 5'9" and 140 pounds and was last seen wearing a black t-shirt, blue jeans, and white running shoes. If anyone has information on his whereabouts, please contact RCMP or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-TIPS.
Somebody should say something to us because, he needs to come home. He has 6 babies, and he has a grandbaby who just turned 2. And a couple of his kids already celebrated their birthdays without their dad. And can you imagine how hard that can be without one of your parents? The only one who raised you, who's been with you your entire life, can't be there to sing happy birthday to you.
And you can read more details about this story over on our website, aptnnews.ca. Bobby Cameron was elected to a 4th term as chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations on October 31st, beating out Aly Bear with a convincing majority in just 1 ballot. But by all accounts, it was an acrimonious campaign. Bear herself faced what appeared to be a concerted attack on her character. Here's APTN's Rachel May with reaction to that from some of her supporters.
And I think that enough is enough. And I'm going to stand up for myself because I'm going to stand up for every other woman that continues to go through this type of abuse, this type of harassment, and this type of treatment in the workplace and within their homes. We need to do better, and we need to protect our women.
Voters arriving at TCU Place during the FSIN election in Saskatoon were greeted with a graphic poster campaign against Aly Bear of the Whitecap Dakota Nation.
As soon as I walked up, there was people telling me, there's posters, these are flyers are everywhere, hundreds of them, all over the outside of the building, all over cars, vehicles.
Bear, who was running against Bobby Cameron for chief of the organization, calls this lateral violence, when people in a certain group, such as residential school survivors, lash out against each other rather than their oppressors. She says it's unacceptable in this day and age. Despite the attack, Bear says it won't stop her from advocating for women who face similar experiences.
There's no time to give up and there's no time to break down, no matter what people do to you and say to you. At the end of the day, my babies are depending on me. And so you can't break me.
Chief Lynn Akus of Zagami Anishinaabe saw the defamatory posters too and believes a conversation about women in leadership is needed. She talked about this with other female delegates who were upset by the posters and wanted action against lateral violence.
There was a study done on women leadership in Canada, like MLAs, MPs, municipal leaders, and it reported a frightening rise in lateral violence and threats towards women leaders. So it's not only at the First Nations level, it's at all levels.
Akus believes First Nations should enforce the calls for justice to combat these attacks.
Start with making the workplace safe for children and women, as well as, having community supports in place to respond to women who do not feel safe.
Chief Matthew Todd Pegan of Pasqua First Nation nominated Bear. He was looking for some kind of action immediately after the attack against Bear.
The chair of the Legislative Assembly, once known that, should have brought that to the attention of the people and explained that that's not our way and condemn it.
Pegan acknowledged that FSIN leadership denounced personal attacks, but said they should have not waited until after the election.
And it's sad when we have an election and we have candidates talking like this about the respect for our kokums, our mothers, our daughters, and all our women, and that we got to always protect them. And then yet you have, pictures, derogatory picture of one of the candidates.
Pegan believes the federal government must work with First Nations to support women facing harassment and violence.
The federal government, although they recognize that it exists, they have to step up more to be more of a partner and in the spirit of reconciliation, as they would call it. And if they don't, then reconciliation is just a made-up word.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
To Winnipeg now, where a date has been set to begin searching the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of at least 2 First Nations women. Melissa Robinson, part of the Search Oversight Committee, told APTN News that the search is slated to begin Monday, December 2nd. She says training for search technicians begins November 25th, and that the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs alone received 140 applications for the job. November 7th is International Inuit Day, and in Winnipeg, the Tungasugit Inuit Centre marked the day by hosting its grand opening at its new space in the North End. The nonprofit was established in 2017 to help the urban Inuit population in Manitoba transition to city life. On Thursday afternoon, dozens from the community gathered to tour the space, enjoy some food and play games. The event opened with the kudluk lighting by an elder. Other festivities included throat singing and drum dancing. The new resource center is over 10 times as large as their previous 1,200 square foot space in Winnipeg's West End. The executive director, Nikki Komak-Sutsiak, says it's important to host the grand opening on International Inuit Day.
International Inuit Day is a day where we can amplify Inuit voices, whether that's challenges or successes. And this is definitely a success for our community to have a space such as this. We know that in order for changes to happen, we have to hear some of those challenges in order for those positive things to happen. And so for us to have our grand opening on a day like this is so meaningful, and it also educates other folks, other Canadians, that Inuit are Canadians as well. And so that's something that we've been working towards, changing that narrative as an urban Inuk.
Great looking space and get together there. The Winnipeg street census is officially in action. Since Wednesday, 200 volunteers have been conducting a point-in-time count of Winnipeg's homeless population. In addition to hearing their stories, volunteers gather information on the conditions that lead people to homelessness and where people are taking shelter. They also collect demographic data such as cultural background, sexuality, and past involvement in the child welfare system. The data is then used to inform government policy and community programs aimed at combating homelessness. The census is typically done over 24 hours, but this year it's being held over 4 days. And Homelessness Winnipeg CEO Jason Whitford explains why.
As has shown, homelessness has most likely increased in our city. We need to get to those different geographic locations. We need to take time. We can't be rushed when we engage with the person and hear their story. Perhaps at first engagement they may not be ready. Perhaps at the second contact they will be ready to tell their story. The 4 days will allow us a more comprehensive I think opportunity to gather those stories that are out there.
To Nunavut now, where Premier PJ Aamjiwnaang survived a vote in the territorial legislature Wednesday to cast him out of his position. Nunavut's MLAs voted 10-8 to keep Aamjiwnaang as premier. The motion to remove him was put forward by Aamjiwnaang MLA Solomon Maliki on Monday. Maliki said there was a lack of transparency in Aamjiwnaang's leadership. The motion was put forward while 3 MLAs were away from the legislature and unable to vote. Aamjiwnaang said his government could improve, although he argued his cabinet had been accountable and goal-oriented. The next Nunavut election will be held in October 2025. Our Truth and Politics panel is taking a look at the life and legacy of Murray Sinclair, who passed away earlier this week. That and more still to come after the break. Welcome back. Judge, TRC Commissioner, and Senator Murray Sinclair died Monday morning with his family at his side. His career and service to the Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities in Canada is far-reaching. We have a special Truth and Politics panel here this week to discuss his life and legacy. Jennifer Lewitz is the CEO of Pasqua Harbor Strategies, and helping us out this week is Mi'kmaq lawyer and professor Pam Palmaner. Jennifer, Pam, thanks for being with us. Jennifer, we'll start with you. And Murray Sinclair's legacy really seems so monumental, but what are some of the things that come to your mind when thinking of the work that he did and the man that he was?
Oh, this is a tough one because it's a huge loss. And first and foremost, my thoughts are with my co-panelist Niigaan, who, is obviously going to be carrying the weight of a tremendous loss in his father. But I saw something posted on social media the other day that talked about Murray's legacy in Canada, and especially, spearheading the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But think of the weight that he carried with all of the survivors' stories and testimonies across our country during that work that he did with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It was incredibly heavy work, and it would have been incredibly difficult to hear all of those stories. And he did it with so much grace. And even in the days and the years following the release of the report, he carried so much grace with him. And I think that can really highlight for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people across the country moving forward, and how we engage with each other and how we move forward in reconciliation. And Murray is one of those people that will never be replaced. He was 100% one of a kind.
Indeed, and yes, our thoughts certainly with Niigaan and the family. Pam, you shared stages with him. What are your thoughts on the mark that Murray Sinclair has left on this country?
Well, obviously, condolences, and my heart goes out to his family and his extended family and his community, and of course Niigaan, because he will be carrying much of that weight. For me personally, he has been an incredible support. So anyone who knows me knows I get cranky from time to time, and if I'm testifying before Senate or some other place, I get really into it and really angry about the injustice, and he always had something supportive to say afterwards. Just to keep going, keep fighting, don't worry about rules or anything else. And he always had a gentle way of being with people that I totally admire. If you think about everything he went through and the threats he experienced when he was heading up the Aboriginal Justice Inquiry in Manitoba, he had every reason to be angry and bitter, and he just kept extending his hand over and over and over again, even with the most offensive questions that people would ask him. Like, who cares? Why don't we just move on? He's like, well, here, let me tell you why. And I just, he's a special person, and I just feel like that obviously it's going to be such a huge loss to us in the community, and all of his support too personally will be greatly missed.
Yeah, I'll just say I went to the public viewing yesterday, and his grade 9 math teacher was even there, just talking about the mark that he'd left and how she was still talking to him like once a month. Jennifer, how can we try to carry on some of the work that he did?
I think that's a really important piece to look at, because I was listening to Premier Wab Kanu's speech on Murray Sinclair, and honestly, the speech was one of the best that I've seen from a parliamentarian or politician in a very, very long time. But he had referenced the fact that when, trees are lost in the forest, it's up to the rest of us to essentially come together to make sure that we carry on that legacy. And it's going to be difficult. I don't think that there's going to be anybody that could ever replace Murray Sinclair. There will be people that do work to that magnitude, but he was one of a kind. And I think collectively, even if little parts of us can come together to build onto his legacy and continue on to that work as a collective, I think that we could do that in his honor, and not only continue advancing reconciliation, but make the Sinclair family proud of his legacy and the impact that it's had on the rest of us.
Pam, your thoughts on how we can honor his legacy and try to carry on that work?
I think it is to carry on. It's like no matter what happens with elections in the US or in Canada or what's happening around the world, no matter how much injustice remains or how frustrated we are, and I'm one of those very frustrated people, it is just to keep going because that's how we have hope. You know, so long as Murray was out there saying, you know, we got this, we're coming together, I have faith in Canadians, it was like, okay, even on the worst day, it's like, okay, he's out there saying that. And now it really is our responsibility. And I would hope that people wouldn't all just assume that that responsibility is all now going to fall to Niigaan, because he already does so much that it really is something that we need to spread out amongst us, because it's a lot of work to do. And thank goodness Murray has brought Canadians to the place that they're at today, something that Americans are like nowhere near where Canadians are in terms of understanding what's happened to Indigenous peoples, what's currently happening, and what needs to happen for reconciliation in the future.
Pam, Jennifer, we'll leave it there, but great to see you both. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A musician from Peguis First Nation in Manitoba is set for a huge honor. Details on that and a look at tonight's episode of Nation to Nation after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. During a recent road trip in northern Manitoba, Charmaine Straker captured this picture of Sea Fall, which is located just outside of Norway House, Manitoba. Thanks, Charmaine. Be sure to send us your pictures to share@aptn.ca for your chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 11 in Halifax, 9 with showers in Charlottetown, -6 and cloudy in Kuujjuaq, snow, and +1 in Nain. 12 with showers in Montreal, snow and 3 above in Val-d'Or. 9 in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 8 in North Bay. Cloudy and 5 in Wawa, 8 in Thunder Bay. 4 in God's Lake, 7 in Norway House. Sunny and 8 in Winnipeg, sun's out and 12 in Dauphin. 11 under sunny skies in Regina, Saskatoon, and Estevan. 10 and sunny in Meadow Lake, 9 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, cloudy and 7 in Fort Chip, 5 with showers and high level. 16 in Lethbridge, sunny, and 17 in Edmonton. 11 with showers in Vancouver and Victoria, 13 in Kamloops. 8 with rain in Prince George, 5 and showers in Smithers. -9 with snow in Old Crow, 2 below in Whitehorse. -9 and flurries in Yellowknife, flurries and 11 below in Norman Wells. -21 in Sax Harbor, 10 below in Paulatuck. -9 in Chesterfield, 13 with snow in Baker Lake. -20 and snow in Resolute, 13 below with snow in Arctic Bay. Peguis First Nation musician William Prince will be honored with Canada's Walk of Fame Award later this month. The annual Alan Slate Music Impact Honor Award celebrates Canadian musicians who inspire and drive positive impact in the music industry. The organization says Prince has used his voice to make a meaningful contribution. Prince to make a meaningful contribution to our collective legacy. That includes hosting Reconciliation Radio Show, A Day to Listen, and penning an original song for the 40th anniversary of Terry Fox's Marathon of Hope. Great Big Sea frontman Alan Doyle will honor Prince with a special performance of one of his songs during Canada's Walk of Fame celebration. That's scheduled to take place on November 20th in Toronto. My apologies to William. Great honor for him, though. Over to our Ottawa studio now, where Fraser Needham is standing by with a look at tonight's episode of Nation to Nation.
Coming up after the news, Donald Trump is back in the White House, and what does this mean for Native Americans? We'll talk to Mark Trehant of ICT News to tell us more. Former Algonquins of Pikwakanagan Chief Wendy Jocko's family has a long history of military service. She's here to talk to us about Indigenous Veterans Day. And First Nations MLA Betty Nippy Albright has been elected to a second term with the NDP in Saskatoon. We'll talk to her about what the recent Saskatchewan election results mean for Indigenous people in the province. All this ahead on Nation to Nation.
Thanks, Fraser. You can catch Nation to Nation right here in about a minute and a half from now, as we're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Thursday. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Join us tomorrow for National Indigenous Veterans Day. Have a great night.